Welcome to Networking RX, a podcast devoted to helping business professionals like you enhance your networking skills in order to become more proficient giving and receiving quality business referrals and improving the overall quality of your life and the lives of those around you. The Networking RX podcast is a production of AmSpirit Business Connections, an organization whose mission is to empower business success through networking.
This is Frank Agin. You are listening to Networking RX. I am the founder and president of AmSpirit Business Connections, and today we will continue to talk on the wonderful topic of networking. Let me share with you a call that I took a few weeks ago. I don't know why I picked up the phone. I mean, you generally know when you're looking, and we all have caller IDs on our landlines and our cell phones. Didn't recognize the number. My gut told me it was some sort of solicitation call, but I picked it up. And I picked it up, and the person on the other end said, "Do you need your roof inspected?" I'm like, "Excuse me?" And he says, "Do you need your roof inspected? You need to have your roof inspected." And he mentioned that he was going to be out in our area, and they were doing free roof inspections, and he was willing to come out and get up on our roof and do a roof inspection. Did I need a roof inspection? And, of course, my gut reaction was right, and my response to it, I was polite, but I'm not always polite, but in this case I was polite. And I just said, listen, don't need a roof inspection. That was the end of it. I really didn't think about it anything beyond that. But then that got me thinking about that call, and several years ago I got a call from somebody else, and this call was completely different, started completely different. And the person called, and it was a total cold call. Again, I didn't recognize the number, but I picked it up, and it started out with, "Hey, Frank, I know this is a cold call. I hate them too. I would like to get 15 minutes of your time. Not today. I don't want to interrupt you. I don't want to interrupt you today, but I'd like to get on your calendar if you don't mind, and just give me 15 minutes. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to send you stuff in advance to give you a chance to review it, and then we can talk about it when you get on the call. Would it be possible I could get on your calendar?" And at that point, I'm like, okay, yeah. Here's a time on my calendar. It was a following Monday, and true to his word, he got me stuff, and we looked at it. And I took the call, and it turned into a nice conversation, and we ended up doing business. He sold me on what he was selling, and I don't need to get into it. And it was worthwhile. But I gave him the time of day, and he approached it entirely differently. Why? Why is there a difference here? Now, it reminds me of a study that I had read. In November of 2001, there were 3 Polish social psychologists that gave a report to the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin. I'm sure you're all subscribed to that. Anyhow, I stumbled on this online and had to ask my brother-in-law, who works at The Ohio State University, who has access to these things. Shout out to Jeff Grabmeyer. He got me the study so I could read it. And what they detailed in the study is that what they wanted to do was demonstrate the power of casual conversations. In essence, what they wanted to show that there is a link between human dialogue and the evidence that a relationship had formed. And they did a series of studies, and I'll talk about one in particular, but in one experiment, the team of researchers selected 100 women at random walking unaccompanied down a sidewalk in the center of Opole, Poland. Now, Opole, I'm pretty sure I said it correctly. I went on Google, found the pronunciation. I still could have screwed it up, but it's Opole, Poland. This was done at the University of Opole. Neither here nor there. So what they did was they selected 100 women at random walking down the sidewalk, and the team randomly assigned 50 to a control group, and then another 50 to the experimental group. Now, during the experiment, a research confederate, the person who was in on the study, helping conduct the study, she was a 22-year-old woman, 22 years old, and she was to approach these 100 women that they had selected. I'm not exactly sure how it how it happened. I doubt they identified him ahead of time. It's probably someone was walking down the street and they said, okay, this person's control group, this person is experimental group. But with the control group, essentially what the Confederate, what this 22-year-old woman did, is she approached these 50 women chosen at random and said, I'm selling aromatic Indian pastilles. Would you like to buy a box from me? Now, what's a pastille? Pastille is either a candle or incense. That's neither here nor there, but just kind of provide a little more detail. But she would go up to these 50 women and say, would you buy these pastilles for me? Buy a box of pastilles for me. And approaching 50 women, she sold 3 boxes. Pretty good. But with the experimental group, the 50 other women chosen at random, she would approach them and basically say, good afternoon, how are you feeling today? And if the test subject responded positively, fine, good, great, this 22-year-old would respond with something akin to, I'm glad to hear you're feeling good. Likewise, if the test subject responded negatively, not good, horrible, or whatever, the experiment, this 22-year-old woman, would respond with, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And she kept both those responses, whether they were good or not feeling good, pretty much the same. But then immediately after responding, this research Confederate, this 22-year-old woman, would say, again, just as she did with the experimental group or the control group, I'm selling aromatic Indian pastilles. Would you like to buy a box from me? In the experimental group, she sold to 11 people. Now, was there something to do between how the people were feeling? They determined no, because 6 of the people who purchased gave a negative response and 5 gave a positive response. So it wasn't just because the people were in a good mood that they responded. Actually, people who weren't having a great day, not a good mood, but weren't having a great day, actually ended up buying more. So it had nothing to do with whether somebody was having a good day or not having a good day. They did a similar experiment where they didn't ask the person how they were feeling, but the research Confederate, the 22-year-old woman, walked up to 50 other women, and rather than saying, how are you feeling, would say, I hope you're having a good day, and then ask them for the purchase. In that case, the results there were the same as the control. They sold basically 3. So what they've determined is having this little dialogue, asking someone how they were feeling. It's a mere tidbit of a conversation. It's really the smallest bit of small talk that you can possibly have, increased the likelihood that the person would comply with the request, that they would actually buy these incense or these candles. In fact, the researchers duplicated these results in 3 other tests, and I won't go through all of that stuff. But what all this shows is that it's proof that there's really value to small talk. I mean, again, this is the smallest possible small talk conversation that you can have. Now, social scientists refer to what's happening here as they call it heuristic processing. Heuristic is spelled Heuristic. Heuristic processing. And in plain English, what's happening is the brain is always looking for shortcuts, including shortcuts to evaluating situations and problem solving. And this is something that our brains have developed over time as a means of finding quick solutions or ease of making mental decision-making processes. For example, if you're walking along and you encounter an angry dog barking, your brain doesn't work through a litany of reasoning such, that dog is barking. It's an angry bark. Dogs bite when they're angry. Dog bites can break my skin. Dogs have rabies, especially angry ones. If that dog bites me, I might get rabies. Get the heck away. Rather, it doesn't go through that litany of reasoning. Rather, it kind of performs a shortcut. Get away, right? As soon as you're hearing the dog bark, we're alerted, and that's heuristic processing. Over time, our brains have developed these shortcuts Because if we got mired down in every little decision, we would still be in the Stone Age if we survived at all. So in this small talk scenario where the 22-year-old woman is approaching other women and saying, well, how is your day? And allowing them an opportunity to respond, and then sincerely saying, I'm sorry you're having a bad day, or you're having a good day. I'm glad you're having a good day. Kind of set in motion this heuristic processing, and basically the person's thinking, okay, you know what, I can trust this person. My brain's telling me I'm in this small talk conversation, I can trust them, as opposed to when they're just abruptly coming at them and saying, would you buy these pastilles for me? But the point is, through eons of development, human brains have programmed a shortcut telling us in so many words that if someone engages us in polite pleasantries, we should like and trust them. Now, obviously, not everyone who engages in small talk with us has our best interest in mind, and there's other filters that will pass that through. But when it comes to split-second decision making, our minds rely on this heuristics. So when the person called me and said, hey, do you need your roof inspected? There was no polite pleasantries. There was no, he just jumped right into it. He jumped right into the sale. And my guard went up immediately. I could feel it. Whereas this other individual who I ended up doing business with, he started out and he really kind of disarmed me, or not disarmed me, but just he allowed my heuristic processing to work, and he was patient with it and said, I know this is a cold call. Okay, we all know it's a cold call. I'm not being abrupt. You can say no if you would like. And so he gave me every opportunity to become comfortable with the situation, allow my heuristic processing to sort of kick in. So the point to all this is, you might not like engaging in small talk, and I understand it's like coffee, it's an acquired taste. Nevertheless, through this experiment and basic understanding of heuristic processing, you can now put faith in the notion that there's value in engaging in it. It's value in engaging in small talk conversation, and I've certainly done other programs on it in this podcast series. And this all begs the question: how can I best capitalize on small talk? My answer to that, in getting better at small talk, is it's not an art per se, but you can certainly improve your proficiency at it through practice. And here are some ideas for becoming better at small talk. And I'll quickly just kind of race through these. I know I did an entire podcast on this earlier. The first thing I tell people with respect to small talk, and again, small talk is powerful because it allows people's minds to engage in this heuristic processing, this little shortcut that said, okay, I can probably trust this person. First thing is, think about small talk. You have odd moments driving in the car, waiting for an appointment. See yourself working through small talk, asking questions, what questions you'd ask, how you're going to respond to those questions. Just kind of engage in this mental exercise. The second thing I encourage people to do is to stop and listen to small talk. Listen to other people having small talk. There are people out there that are really good at it. And they probably don't know they're good at it. It just becomes really natural through practice, or just that's how they are. Whatever the case, they're very good at just kind of having small talk conversations. I like to think I'm pretty good at small talk conversations. I know people who still impress the heck out of me. I sit and, wow, that was really good how that came about. But I listen to other people's small talk conversation, and I try and pick things up from it, how they transition from one thing to the next, how they listen, how they have moments of silence, all these little tricks. But listening to other people will help you. So listen to other people's small talk. And then the final thing I encourage people to do to get better at small talk is engage in it. Engage in it whenever you have opportunities to engage in it. And I'll engage in small talk as I'm checking out at the grocery store, when I'm talking to a server at a restaurant. A lot of restaurants will have a server, and they'll have some sort of statement under their name or where they're from, and I'll ask questions about that and get them talking. The other thing I do to engage in small talk is, and I'll talk on this maybe in another program, but I do a lot of sports photography. I will go to mainly my kids' soccer games, and I will stand on the sidelines, have a pass, and I'll stand on the sidelines, and I'll take pictures of all the players. And soccer games, there are always a litany of kids or adults, college students, these are college games, who are shagging balls. So when the ball gets kicked out, they're chasing the ball down. Ball boy, ball girl, ball kid, whatever you want to call them. And I'll always engage in small talk with these people. And, what sport they play, what do they do, what are they studying, where are they from, just kind of what their story is. And there's really no end game to my small talk to them other than just, hey, we're both here occupying this moment in time. But I find it helps me get better at making small talk. Maybe starting out with a joke or just a quick little one-liner, and kind of loosen them up, but it helps me get better at it. But the point is that small talk is really a powerful thing, and that this study kind of illustrates that. It demonstrates that small talk is anything but small when it comes to being effective. It is really effective, and you need to take the time to engage in it whenever you have the opportunity, because there's a lot of power to it. Finally, to wrap up, remember we're looking to add quality people to our stable of franchisees, the AmSpirit Business Connections model. This is a unique franchise opportunity. It's geared for aspiring entrepreneurs to add on to what they're already doing. All of our franchisees do something else for a few hours in the morning, a few days a week. They're AmSpirit franchisees. That generally wraps up about 9 a.m. And so then the rest of their time, they are successful attorneys, accountants, financial advisors, marketing consultants, business coaches, telecommunications consultants. It kind of runs the gamut. And so the rest of their week, that's what they're doing when they're not spending a few hours operating the AmSpirit Business Connections program. So if this is something that you're interested in, contact me. There's an email in the show notes, or you can use the one that we'll provide at the end of this podcast, which starts now.
Thanks for joining us on the Networking RX podcast. Please put what you've learned into action today and let us know if you have questions, comments, or ideas for future topics. You can email them to us at podcast@amspirit.com. That's AmSpirit.com. Finally, so you never miss an episode, be sure to subscribe to the Networking RX podcast through iTunes, Overcast, or however you receive your podcasts. Now get out and network with someone.
The Networking RX podcast is the copyright production of AmSpirit Business Connection. All rights reserved.